You can stay for Bert's party and support his transition. But only if you behave in a manner that brings no shame upon yourself, the founder, or his progeny. I don't know what's gotten into you people today.
Every actor in Severance is essentially performing a high-wire balancing act. After some phenomenal performances from the main cast, especially in Season 2, I'd say some awards are in order. At the very least, a freaky waffle party. Yeah, look at that. That's my kind of party. I don't know what kind of party this is. But one of the show's breakout stars is actor Tramell Tillman, who seems to effortlessly embody the equally warm and foreboding presence of Lumen company man Seth Milchick.
In a minute.
I want to talk about Tramell, his background, his meticulous research in approaching the character, and why he deserves all the praise that's coming his way.
You know, at 10 years old, I realized that I wanted to act, and my dad told me I'd never make it, and my mom said, follow your dreams. And so I was torn between the two of them.
After bouncing around a variety of office jobs, Tramell finally began pursuing acting at around 29 when he got a master's degree from University of Tennessee in Knoxville, something he had always been interested in from a young age. Even as far back as 2004, he was an extra in this scene of The Wire.
I got my start doing background, and I got to sit, I think, 2 or 3 rows behind Wendell Pierce while they did their scene in a baseball field.
Tramell eventually moved to New York and got plenty of work in theater on and off Broadway, like when he worked alongside Sean Hayes in Goodnight Oscar.
In case of what?
I become irascible.
You're always irascible.
You're right, and that can only mean one thing.
And what's that?
I'm under-medicated.
And starting around 2005, he began appearing in film and television. Some prominent roles included a warm best friend in the short-lived AMC series Dietland.
You're the best. Thank you, Auntie Plum.
A music producer who gets in over his head in the crime drama series Godfather of Harlem.
I ain't no snitch.
And a homicide detective investigating the mysterious murders of Nazis in Hunters.
It looked like she slipped, but the ME said it wasn't the head wound that killed her.
One thing I think works in Tramell's favor when playing Milchick is that it's like he hasn't been seen that much by audiences. He keeps us guessing because we have no preconceived notions of who this actor is. Like, for example, if Mr. Milchick was played by a known actor, like Jeffrey Wright, we've come to know what to expect more or less from Jeffrey's past performances. Plus, it's a familiar face. We already have this familiarity with him. But because Severance was presumably the first time a huge audience was seeing Tramell, each scene is a genuine surprise.
The music dance experience is officially canceled.
So after hitting the pavement in New York for a number of years, the audition came in for Seth Milchick in Severance.
And I go in, I meet with Ben, I meet with Dan, and I make Ben laugh. So I said, okay, well, if it doesn't work out in my favor, at least I made Ben Stiller laugh.
The character had a laughably short breakdown. Male, 20s to 50s, African-American, an enthusiastic company man.
The scene that I auditioned with was the red ball scene, So that was really fun to be able to play in that world. Guys, this is Helly. She's 30 years old, she's allergic to almonds, and has weak enamel.
It's really the perfect scene to audition an actor because ideally you want to see if they'll be able to play both the warmth and the menace of Milchick and be able to transition seamlessly from one to the other. It's the first time in the show we see those traits on display. He starts off with that measured, soft-spoken friendliness, but when Mark admits that he broke protocol, you can see that smile fade like a disappointed parent. Ugh.
I think this is a good time to remind ourselves that things like deaths happen outside of here. And I think a great potential response to that from all of you is gratitude. I also think that melon isn't getting any tastier. Oh, and I remember Ben telling me, even before I got the role, they said, well, this guy can be mean and he can be nice. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, well, great. I don't know how much to do with that. But it's like, how do you find that?
Needless to say, Tramell had a lot of filling out to do when it came to creating Milchick. I mean, there's a lot going on under the surface. Tramell cites multiple roles Milchick plays. He's a teacher, a mentor, an enforcer, but above all, what seemed most important was his absolute devotion to Lumen.
There's something that Lumen gives him that he can't get anywhere else. And what that is specifically, I think, has not been established yet, right? And that's the fun of it. We don't know what that is. I literally do not know, and that's not me being cagey. I literally don't know. I attribute the research that I did with cults and my experience being a part of organizations, whether they be religious or non-religious, where you have people that are devotees, and you see that many times these people who commit their life to it, there is something that they have gone through, they've endured. There's a perspective of the world that this particular entity, this organization provides a place of safety and structure and routine. And with Milchick is all about routine. You know, his hair is pristine, his clothes are pristine, everything is in place. Even the way he speaks is pristine. So it makes sense to find those connections of solidity and strength, and him tying it right into Lumen was really powerful. So as long as I continue to lean or push Milchick to lean more on Lumen and less in the kind of the ethical world and why he's doing this and why is that, it made him much more ferocious.
Tramell admits, at least around the time of these interviews, that he literally doesn't know Milchick's background or why he is so committed. If he's drawing from cult devotees, it's possible Milchick went through something traumatic to make him that much of a zealot, and that he has to change and mold himself in order to fit in at Lumen.
My imagination is that when Milchick was integrated into the Lumen fold, whenever that happened, that there were things in him that he had to let go of, you know? And as the season progresses, we get introduced to his journey and his leadership and his styles and how he has to fit within the Lumen culture.
I'm tightening the leash.
You can really tell how deeply Tramell has thought about his character, and he speaks with such confidence. So it was surprising for me to learn from the Severance podcast that he got real nervous and overwhelmed on his first day of shooting, specifically with his very first scene, a seemingly simple walk and talk scene with John Turturro, 22 seconds long, that took around 16 takes.
I had to walk over the rung ladder, but make it look like I was not walking through the rung ladder.
Of course.
Yeah. It was choreographed in such a way that I had to lead, but stay with John, even though he's behind me. And I had to say the lines, which are written so beautifully by Dan Erickson, but it's not in a natural cadence.
Right.
And then also work with the camera that was switching and turning and hitting the corners and whatnot. And then I'm also working with Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what is going on? I was freaking out.
Yeah. Your first day on this big show. Yeah.
We did a couple takes, and John got wind of my frazzle, and he said, just relax. Just breathe. You got it. And I turned and looked at him, and I smiled. I said, thank you, John.
But Tramell obviously got the hang of it eventually and became comfortable enough on set to actually be a little bit method. Yeah, not a lot of joking around or conversation in between takes, keeping his distance from the other actors, just kind of staying in it at all times.
With Milchick, it feels like you got to put a suit on. You know what I mean? This man's got layers upon layers upon layers, and at any moment he could turn. So for me to walk in that, even on set, you know, I'm not, or at least I don't think I'm a dick to anybody on set, but you know, there's a heaviness, there's a weight that you gotta stay in. And the way the ship is ran, we're like so focused and so tuned in and getting the shots and angles and everything. We can't afford to lose any moment.
I know this has been a tough quarter. I'm gonna see about wrestling you up some special perks. That sound good? Good man, Dylan. Good man.
Another aspect of Milchick that Tramell put a lot of thought into is how manipulative he can be, whether he's bribing Dylan with visits from his outie's wife or going toe-to-toe with Drummond.
Devour feculence. It means eat shit, Mr. Drummond.
Not only that, but he can think on his feet and is terrifyingly intelligent. You may not realize it when you first watch it, but this scene in particular, when Milchick meets with Mark's Audi and his family to address what happened with the overtime contingency thing, there's just an absurd amount of subtext going on.
What your innie did tonight was completely unauthorized. It was also very brave.
Well, he knew that he can't come into this room as he would approach the innies. So now this is damage control. This is customer service representative. He's putting on that hat. And so there was this game of, how do I convince them? How do I push, but not push too much? You know, what is it that they know? And what is it that they're willing to trust me with?
Even in the follow-up scene where Milchick visits Mark's Audi alone, you can just see the wheels turning in Milchick's head, trying to find this balancing act.
The Mark I've come to know at Lumen is happy. He cares for people. And he's funny. He knows nothing of the pain I see in you right now.
Going back and watching that scene, it's so creepy and you feel the manipulation, but I see the brilliance. So this is a man who is very cunning, incredibly intelligent, and also has a knowledge base of these Audis and is able to tap into that knowledge base at any given moment.
You said since she died, every day feels like a year. That you felt like you were choking on her ghost. Do you still feel that way, Mr. Scout?
Another thing Tramell has had to rationalize in his head is how busy this guy is. He admits sometimes he doesn't know how Milchick has the time in his day to organize melon parties, funeral services, and in season 2 especially, he is spinning multiple plates.
Because Cobell went rogue, she tapped out, and he still had to keep the train going. So it's a lot. It's a lot on him. I don't know if people really appreciate what this man is going through to keep things going.
This was always in the back of my mind watching Milchick do all this stuff, which is why it was so refreshing and hilarious to see Milchick finally in a hurry in the season 2 finale.
And as I'm duly swamped, I shall leave you to read it in solitude.
Apparently that was the first take, by the way. Stiller and the camera operator didn't know he was going to book it out of the room, which is why the camera didn't even pan down. And no wonder, he's got to organize a halftime-esque celebration for Mark for finishing Cold Harbor. The man prepared a speech, he wrote jokes, he brought out a full-on marching band. Which, by the way, brings us to Tramell's dancing. Let's rewind a little bit to season 1, when, as a reward for the innies, Milchick treats them to a music dance experience. Tramell has been, I would say, a bit humble when talking about his dancing, mentioning he's, quote, taken a class here and there. But man, it is a high point in the series, and Ben Stiller goes into detail in the Severance podcast on how it came about.
I mean, the guy is just so talented, and it was a revelation to me. I knew he was good as an actor, and I knew he moved well, within the scenes. But when, this is episode 7, we had a choreographer who came, but basically Tramell just kind of went off and said, I got some ideas, I have some thoughts. And then they just showed me this, this dance that he came up with. And it's so weird and specific. And it also, I think, sort of triggered everybody else in the scene to have their own version of what they would do in this situation. It really just brought out the best in everybody, I think.
It is definitely an odd, kind of hypnotic, disarming sequence. When I first watched it, it just made me wonder even more about this guy, Milchick. Is he actually enjoying himself, or is this just a facade? I don't know. Well, Tramell has his own take, at least how he played it.
It was so much fun, and it's also a great release for Milchick. He was coming in, he's high pressure, everything is going haywire, but it's now, I can relax. I can let loose. I need some frivolity too. And so he does it.
Fast forwarding to the season 2 finale, he dances again with a full marching band. It again speaks to how Milchick genuinely wants to show the innies a good time, but also takes it very seriously.
I gave them a band. I got them a band, 200-piece set band. Like, come on. And they still didn't appreciate it. Grow up. Grow up. Grow. Grow. Grow.
But the best part about watching Tramell's performance is seeing how he's able to show these little bits of humanity seeping through. Like, really, who is this guy? There are only a handful of moments that give us those glimpses. And going back to the marching band scene, as ridiculous and fun and weird as it is, the whole sequence gives us a little insight into his character. I mean, think about it. The fact that Milchick chose a marching band, predominantly associated with marching bands at historically black colleges and universities, is no coincidence. In a 2025 interview for Vulture, Tramell agrees with the interviewer that Milchick is asserting his blackness. Quote, absolutely. We have to remember that Milchick put this together. He chose this. He chose the band. He got the refiners together. He got the outfits together. He probably helped orchestrate the formations, the selections. I don't know how this man did all this.
I remember the conversation that I had with you, Ben, and Dan Erickson when we discussed Milchick's ethnicity, the fact that he's black. And the question I asked is, does he know he's black? And so for me, it was really important for this character and as an actor to know if this character understood that he is different from this culture that they've built at Lumen.
Of course, this all tracks with Milchick's mixed feelings when, as a reward for his hard work, he's given paintings of Keir reimagined as a black man.
The board wishes to express that I, Natalie, received this same gift upon receipt of my current position and found it extremely moving.
A lot of thought went into this scene. Ben Stiller wisely let Tramell and actress Sydney Cole-Alexander, who plays Natalie, play it how they saw fit. Sydney played it as having empathy for Milchick, but no sympathy. Milchick, on the other hand, is hard to read, and that was by design. As part of an effort to keep Milchick shrouded in mystery and to pique the curiosity of the audience, Tramell played it ambiguously. It is a masterclass in focusing on not what's said, but what's not said.
I'm grateful.
Yes.
It's meaningful to see myself reflected in
But taking into consideration that he hides the paintings away and tries his best to broach the subject with Natalie again, it seems like it's not only a window into who Milchick is, but also a potential chipping away at his devotion to Lumen.
I was just wondering if you could share with me a little how you felt when you received the paintings. Because I'm thinking our experiences here have been similar in some ways. We face similar challenges. And perhaps the paintings and the somewhat complicated feelings they evoke.
Mr. Drummond's waiting.
Yes, of course.
And then comes the performance review, which doesn't go well. He's mixing up paper clips. Come on, Milchick. How could you mix up the paper clips? What are you doing? And also, more importantly,
uses too many big words.
Well, perchance I may colloquially employ
Anti-deflections will be heard after the lunch break.
In that same Vulture interview, Tramell confirms that he thinks Milchick is scared all the time. Quote, we see him sweat when he's in the performance review because he's thinking he's going to lose his job. It carries over, and we don't really see it fully release. Every subsequent scene with Milchick, you could just see this pressure just getting to him. After jumping through countless hoops for this company and just being everywhere all the time and dealing with these innies like they're toddlers, he gets dumped on by Lumen, and he's just breaking his back for him. So the gloves start to come off a little. He confronts Mark in the elevator, gets right up in his face like he's ready to throw down, man.
Did you and Heliar catch up?
We did.
Did you tell her that you f***ed her outie at the Orpo?
Then there's this scene when Mark makes the ultimate call out of work call and tells Milchick that he just needs a day.
I mean, work is just work, right?
Do you know what I mean, Mr. Milchick?
And you can see Milchick really think about that, like staring at that painting of the iceberg. I mean, that's a metaphor himself, right? Almost like he's been so committed, he's never really thought of just taking a day.
I have your word. You report to work tomorrow?
You do, yeah. I'll be there, I promise.
Good. And thank you for calling.
Then the finale. Milchick puts all this work into celebrating Mark, and it's as if Mark and Helly just spit in his face. They trap him in the bathroom with a vending machine, and in that same Vulture interview, Tramell comments on this moment for Milchick. Quote, in the finale where he's knocking the hell out of this vending machine, he's standing on top and staring them down, it's all pent up. That's probably the culture at Lumen. All of these characters, Cobell, Drummond, Natalie, Grainer, they're all very stoic. Everything's hidden, everything's pushed down. He doesn't have that ability to, you know? This is where I felt like the tide completely turned for Milchick and that his alliance might slightly shift going forward in the series.
Right, Milchick?
As we process this Season 2 finale, that question remains. Will Milchick stay in line or rebel against Lumen? Going back to the Vulture interview, Tramell says, quote, there's an awakening that's happening with Milchick, and I love that we're starting to see his humanity seep through. There are more cracks in the veneer. By the end, it's uncertain what he's going to do, and that's really compelling storytelling.
The legacy you've left behind is truly and irrefutably larger than life.
You mean my company?
No. I mean this wax statue that's 5 inches taller than you actually were.
Tramell goes on to comment on what he would personally like to see with Milchick. Quote, I'm hoping for his vindication. I'm hoping for us to see the heart of who he is. I love the fact that he's mysterious, and I believe there is a clever way to show someone's humanity, but still make them mysterious as hell. Tramell may not have intended to do so, but in saying that, he managed to give himself a compliment. The cleverness, intuition, and hard work it takes to show someone's humanity while still keeping them a mystery sounds even more complicated than the subtle acting work it takes to play a severed character. I don't know, man, it's just great. The whole performance. You know that feeling you get when you're watching a character and you begin to realize you're watching something that people will remember and talk about for years in the history of film and television? That doesn't happen often, but right now, Tramell Tillman is in that moment. And I think it's safe to say that the best has yet to come.